Good morning, traders. I'm Emily Vani, the CEO of the Investment Banking Institute and your host here at NewsWare's Trade Talk. Joining me is trading anchor Bill Olson, who brings more than 30 years of institutional trading experience to our program. At Trade Talk, we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Today is Wednesday, June 12th. As we await the bell this morning, investors also await the latest reading on inflation and the latest on monetary policy from the Fed. Yesterday, markets ended mixed. The Nasdaq pulled out a gain of 151 points, or 0.86%. The S&P 500 added 14 points, or just more than 0.25%. The Dow closed in the red, dropping 120 points, or 0.31%. Bill, let's get into today's action with what is happening in the markets this morning.
Hi, yes, good morning, Emily. I'm watching the S&Ps. The S&Ps are higher by 0.12%, a little over a tenth of 1%. This is what you would expect, low volatility going into a day of key economic data, and today is a day of key economic data. I mean, this morning we get the CPI coming out. We also got a Fed announcement happening. Now, I think the CPI is going to be, obviously the CPI comes first, and that's going to be very relevant. I mean, on the other hand, like the Fed's been very consistent with its guidance, but they're releasing the dot plot. It's a quarterly dot plot, and they're releasing the dot plot. Now, if you remember back in March when they last released, they said, we're looking for 3 cuts this year, but realistically they were 2. They just boosted it up to 3. So the markets were positive about that. But this time around, it's likely going to move down to 2. It could move down to 1. But if it moves to 0, oh, that would not be good for the markets. What else do we see going on here today besides the CPI and the Fed? We got the Oracle. They came out with better than expected. Actually, they were weaker. The results were weaker, but there's more to that story. Tesla's got its shareholders meeting coming up. That's going to be a big one. Auto stocks overall are falling. Why auto stocks are falling? Because the EU was moving forward on tariffs with the Chinese electric vehicles, and that's really causing some weakness in autos in Europe. Here in the States, Tesla's weak, but Ford and GM are trading higher, so that's kind of positive. But let's keep an eye on what's going on in Europe this morning. Take a quick peek at the DAX, because the DAX is up 0.65% or 118 points. That's positive. I mean, I know that their CPI rose to 2.4% in May, from April, which, stable growth. Okay. The FTSE's up 0.72 or 58 points. They got that Bank of England meeting next week. Got to keep that in mind. And the CAC is rebounding from last few days of losses. It's up 0.5% or 38.59 points this morning. That's good to see. Then we're looking last night in the action in Asia, where the Nikkei fell 258 points or 0.66%. Their PPI came out, and there's speculation that the Bank of Japan is going to trim, its Japanese government bond purchases when it makes an announcement on Friday. Something to keep in mind. Hong Kong, the Hang Seng dropped 1.31%. I mean, this is like the 5th day in a row of weakness in that for that index. That's 238 points. And then you got China, which did eke out a gain. It was up 0.31 or 9.5 points. The consumer and producer price data for May, pointed to persistent weak demand. Consumer prices rose just 0.3% year over year, whereas in the producer prices data, or the PPI, fell 1.4% year over year. So it's a long stretch of declines in their PPE for China. Then we got to talk about oil, because oil is moving this morning. We're looking at oil prices. They're up over 1% this morning. We got WTI at $78.83 a barrel, and Brent is at $82.75 a barrel. Last night we had that API, the crude oil inventory estimates, come out. They showed that crude oil, there was a draw of 428 million barrels last week. That's positive for oil prices. And then this morning, on top of that, the EIA raised its 2024 forecast for global oil consumption growth by around 200,000 barrels to 1.1 million barrels per day. And then later today, we get the EIA data coming out, which is the official data for the stockpiles. So a lot going on, but you see oil is spiking, and that's kind of nice to see. But that's what I have for you in terms of a morning market update report today, Emily.
Bill, at the very top of that, you said, besides CPI and the Fed, what else do we have going on today? And to be able to find all of that information, not just the top headlines, you're using your NewsWare. So we're able to follow all of this information. And we're going to get to a lot of details on the day, including those economic events throughout the show. Before we get to the economic events, we're going to start with earnings action. Give us a rundown of what we should be watching when it comes to earnings.
Well, let's talk about what happened last night. We got Casey General Stores, ticker, that's ticker CASY, Charlie Apple Sam Yellow. First off, the stock's up 5.95% this morning. It's a big move. These guys beat by 62 cents on higher revenue. I was not expecting to beat here. I'm really surprised to see that. But, these Casey General Stores are supposed to be hot places to go. Oracle, on the other hand, they missed by 2 cents, and they did it on lower revenue. But they're doing these deals with the other cloud providers, giving them access to the Oracle database, for long-term contracts rather than, a revenue upfront type deal. And so because of that, you're seeing, them raise guidance. And because of that, you're seeing Oracle stock price jump 7.43% this morning. So while the numbers weren't positive, the future guidance was really nice to see. And then upcoming, we got a number of upcoming ones. Dave and Buster's, that's Play, ticker PLAY, Paul, Larry, Apple, Yellow. They're announcing this afternoon their EPS is $1.55. Expected move is 13.39%. Then you got a Broadcom, ticker AVGO, Apple, Victor, Grace, Oscar. Their EPS is $10.79 when the expected move of 5.74% when they release this afternoon, Emily.
Certainly we'll be watching that. But as we mentioned, really what everybody's eyes are on this morning are those economic events, inflation report, of course, the latest from the Fed, but also, as you always mention, commentary from Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell following the announcement. And that tends to be the big market mover. So give us a look, Bill, at everything we should be watching when it comes to economic events.
Okay, 8:30 a.m. we get the CPI report. Okay, year over year is expected to come in at 3.5 versus 3.6. This is the core CPI. This is the one the Fed watches. It's the most important metric out of this data report. And then, in terms of, the CPI for May, expected to come at 0.3%, which is what it was last month. But that core is really what the key one is. That is expected to come a little light, which would be very positive for the Fed. And then at 10:30 a.m., we get the oil stockpiles report from the EIA. And then at 2 p.m., of course, we get the FOMC policy announcement and the summary of economic productions, also known as the dot plot. And then at 2:30, you have Fed Chairman Jerome Powell's press conference. Listen, Jerome Powell's going to stick to his script. He's going to say, hey, rates are going to be higher for longer. He's, the Fed is data dependent. He's going to say that it depends on how the data comes in. This is when we'll know where we're going to be lowering interest rates. If the data continues to weaken, maybe we could see an interest rate sooner than the end of the year. But he's not going to really show his hand any, which is why I think the dot plot data is really going to be very interesting, and that's going to be a big market move. Powell will be attempting to be dovish and calm the markets down. But it's a lot of events happening today on the economic front today, Emily.
A lot of events happening. And my question is, how are you able to keep track of all of this information? Bill, for you, the answer is easy. It is NewsWare. You have alerts set up for all of this data and information for those announcements so that you're seeing them in real time. You're not trailing behind other news outlets waiting for those headlines to hit. You're seeing the data in real time. And you're also watching other types of data and information, things like merger news, guidance news, shareholders meetings, other catalysts. You group stocks together, your FANG stocks, your Dow 30 stocks, to watch information coming out of those segments together as well. So, Bill, what else do you see is possibly moving the markets today?
I'm just doing a quick data check here. I got the 18 Dow stocks higher, 9 lower, and the rest unchanged. I'm looking at my FANG stocks. I'm only seeing weakness in Tesla. Everything else is trading a little higher, which is positive. We're looking at some of the news behind it. Apple, they're expecting a surge of iPhone sales. Everybody says, the numbers are too low. The numbers are too low. They're going to sell more because they have now these AI enhanced phones, supposedly. But they're going to release those phones in September. Let's just kind of wait and see. September's still a long way away. Amazon, they're going to be investing billions of dollars into a Taiwan cloud infrastructure. Google, Oracle, and Google Cloud announced a multi-cloud partnership. That's positive. Then we got to talk about Tesla for a second. Listen, that shareholder vote on Musk's pay package is tomorrow. Elon Musk and his brother are prevented from voting on it. Institutional support is mixed. Investors don't really vote in these things, so it's very passive. But ISS and Glass Lewis are both recommending that you vote no on the Musk pay package. And then on top of that, there's talk of Musk's got more legal issues going on because apparently, remember those sales that he did when he was trying to buy Twitter. Well, he made billions of dollars by selling the company stock, and the institutional shareholders are saying that he used inside information because he knew that that the sales numbers were going to be weak, so he grabbed all this money ahead of releasing the weak sales numbers. That's kind of tough to prove, but where's the SEC? The SEC is the one supposed to be investigating this, but for whatever reason, they don't seem to investigate Elon Musk. But yeah, it's going to be there's a lot of, how do I say it, cautious headlines surrounding Tesla right now. Okay, let's move on to Dow stocks. We're talking UNH, United Healthcare, ticker UNH, Uncle Nancy Henry. Federal regulators, they're going to allow UNH to notify those people whose data was hacked. I mean, there's a big question: can UNH do it or not? And federal regulators just came out and said, yeah, you can do it. Then we're talking Johnson & Johnson, ticker JNJ. They formalized that $700 million baby powder settlement. But this proposal doesn't resolve them from personal injury lawsuits. Remember, Johnson & Johnson did that deal where they did that secondary and they spun it off into Kenvue. So we'll see how much this actually, hurts Johnson & Johnson. I look at Johnson & Johnson this morning, it's up 0.2%. Now we're talking merger news. We got to start off with Paramount Global, ticker PARA. Paramount Global's parent has reportedly ended merger talks with Skydance. They didn't give any reason. That's because Skydance came out last week and kind of told everybody what their new deal was for Paramount to try and force Sherry Redstone hands. You don't know the Redstones. They like their privacy. As soon as you did that, I knew that you were no longer in play. Maybe that was their plan all along, but Paramount Global, they got other suitors. They're not even considering that Skydance offer anymore. Don't be surprised if Skydance, if they up their bid, if Sherry Redstone still takes it. Then you got ticker RTO, Richard Tom Oscar. This is Rentokil. Listen, the stock's up. Nelson Perez of Triad Fund, he's building a stake. We'll see. They make weed killer products. Talking about guidance, talking Oracle, ticker ORCL. They see Q1 EPS $1.33 to $1.37. Street estimates $1.32. That's definitely an uptick. Autodesk, ticker ADSK. They see Q2 EPS $1.98 to $2.04. Street estimates $2.15. That's a downtick. We're talking shareholders meeting. Caterpillar, Big Cat, ticker CAT, Charlie Apple Tom. They're having a shareholders meeting today. Starts at 9 a.m. And then let's talk about catalyst calls. Ticker ALNY, Apple, Larry, Nancy, Yellow. Citibank opens up a 30-day positive catalyst watch into Elayam Pharmaceuticals. This is just ahead of their phase 3 date. It's 30-day positive catalyst watch. So we got to keep an eye on shares of ALNY. But that's what I have for you in terms of the news in the tape this morning, Emily.
This is the type of data that NewsWare delivers daily. It's factual, it's market moving, and our alerting functions bring it to your attention as it happens. Go to www.newsware.com now and sign up for the trial and see for yourself the benefits that professional Newswire delivers. It is now that time of the show for the Trade Talk pick of the day. Bill, what do you have for us today?
This is a tough one to make a pick on. But I'm going to go with Broadcom, ticker AVGO, Apple, Victor, Grace, Oscar. Earnings are out after the bell. EPS is $10.79. Estimated move is 5.74%. You're looking at yesterday's call volume, 24,550 calls versus 17,666 puts. You're looking at open interest of 147,772 versus puts of 135, 429, both positive. Gotta like that. Major brokers do like the stock. They're raising price targets. 1550 is kind of a common price target. So yeah, it does look good. Now, last quarter they delivered a nice beat, but the stock sold off. I don't think that's going to happen twice. But your entry price is everything here. Now I got to kind of worry about the CPI, and I also got to consider the Fed meeting and everything. I'm gonna say under 1400, maybe a little under, for maybe 1350. There could be a sell off. I mean, it just depends on how that CPI comes out. But I do think they will come out with a positive earnings report. I don't think it's going to have too much volatility to the downside, because they do have that pending event coming up. So that would likely limit the downside. But if I can get in around 1400, I think it would be a good deal now. The stock is supposed to move 5.74%. So that's something to keep an eye on. I'm not likely to hold it into earnings, I got to tell you right now. But that's my pick of the day. Broadcom, ticker AVGO, Apple, Victor, Grace, Oscar, Emily.
Broadcom is today, again, making that call ahead of a number of catalysts today. We will follow that along with you. And coming up, we're going to see how yesterday's pick of the day worked out when we do a recap on that. So stay with us. But first, let's take a look at the current breaking headlines that have hit the tape in our hot off the press segment. Bill, take it away.
Okay, let's see what we have here. Casey General Stores raises quarterly dividends 16% to 50 cents a share. Citron Research covers GameStop short. VERX, Vertex, acquires AI capabilities from Ryan, terms not disclosed. FedEx, ticker FDX, to cut 1,700 to 2,000 jobs in Europe's across back office and commercial functions. They put that out in a regulatory filing. Ticker BLTE, Boy Larry, Tom Edward. This is the Belty Bio. They were granted, it's like new drug designation in Japan for one of their drugs. Robinhood reported May assets under custody, 135 billion. Big number. Got that Goldman Sachs Global Healthcare Conference today. Aviva and Johnson & Johnson will be presenting. T-Mobile, TMUS attorneys are challenging $78 million in legal fees stemming from a data breach class action settlement with the company. Microsoft, Taiwan Semiconductor, Taiwan chip designer, Giant MediaTek is developing an ARM-based personal computer chip that will run Microsoft Windows operating system. Ford, the U.S. car maker, said to be cutting about 1,600 jobs at an assembly plant in Valencia, Spain. Boeing, they got to deal with an air lease company. It's like 4 planes. It's not a big one. But I also see that NASA and Boeing said that they expect to bring that Starliner spacecraft and its first astronaut crew back to Earth from the International Space Station as soon as June 18th, which would be later than what was previously scheduled. But they want to make sure that they're doing it safety and give these guys every opportunity to land safe. Google said that Brazil will be the first country to test an anti-theft feature on an Android phone that uses artificial intelligence to identify when a phone has been stolen and lock the device. That's all I'm seeing this morning, Emily.
Okay, Bill, before we get to trading on this Wednesday, let's take a look back at yesterday's pick of the day, which was ExxonMobil. Hoping to take advantage of some volatility in the oil sector yesterday. You wanted to grab XOM if there was some weakness and hoping to get a gain from there. Bill, how did your call work out?
It's still kind of working, I guess. I mean, listen, I got in at $111.78. You look at the stock now, it's trading $112.75 on the ask. So that's like, we're really close, but I think oil's going to spike higher today. So, I mean, it's still developing. I still think that 1% is there. We're at like 0.75% right now. Just give it some time. ExxonMobil, it's not perfect yet, but it's really leaning that way. But it's got a lot of good things in play. So ExxonMobil was a solid pick. Because of all those events going around in oil, and the stock opened up at $112.49, and then it fell down to $111.31. But then it ran back up to $112.67 and closed at $112.17. So I made money on it, still positive because I got in under 112. You got that shortfall you got the drawdown in the API. You get the pending EIA data. You got that positive report from one of the oil agencies, and then you get the CPI, and you got the Fed announcement today. But I definitely think this is going to work out. It just needs a little bit more time. You can give me another 2 hours. I'm pretty confident that this thing will trade over 113, and we'll have our 1% on the day. But that's all I'm going to say. Yes, it is working out. Still developing, Emily.
Still in play on that one, and we will not make a call on that yet and continue to watch that. We will check in with you tomorrow about today's pick of the day, your Broadcom pick of the day. Bill, thank you as always for your expert insight. Join us back here tomorrow and each weekday morning at NewsWare's Trade Talk when we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Again, I'm your host, Emily Advani, here with trading anchor Bill Olson. Traders, you know what to do. Let's go out there and make some green.